Is there confirmation on the stream?
There is. And we are about to go in. Ooh, mute your phones. That was my reminder.
Mm-hmm. So
All right.
What are the magic words?
Yeah. We
mute your phone.
Mute your phone.
Timing.
I don't know. Okay.
And mute is off.
I'm about to do that.
Please.
Okay. And mute is off. And we're gonna go in. Did I not
Perfect.
do it right?
Not so far.
Okay. Mute is off. And we're gonna go in 3, 2, 1, and
Hi. Steve Gilmore here. This is the Gilmore Gang, and we're coming to you from, where are we coming from?
we're in the California
everywhere
coast.
and nowhere, baby.
Uh-oh. That was Keith Tier. Welcome.
Okay.
Keith Tier.
Earth, galaxy, the Milky Way,
And I
You've
can't
never
sing,
seen that
so I don't know
before?
what that
the
was.
mind of God.
That's brand new.
Hi, Keith Tier. Welcome back.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. It's almost a surprise to be here. I've had a heavy week with the COVID reaction to the vaccine, but I'm all good now, and I'm so glad I've had my first one.
Yay!
Excellent. Joining us on time is Brent Leary. Brent, I just saw you yesterday. What were you doing yesterday?
Listening to you and really enjoying Tina's commentary while watching you.
Oh,
Can you fill in the blanks a little bit on that?
I guess I could. Oh, you're like now. Yeah. So I kind of turned the tables on Mr. Gilmore Gang by inviting him on to the CRM Players. And we had a unique discussion. Nobody's talking about any of the things that we talked about yesterday because we talked about Clubhouse. And yeah.
Yeah, nobody.
Well, it was Brian Solis, Paul Greenberg, who wrote a huge post about the
6,000 words. Yep.
Yes, and and Ginger Conlon, is that her last name?
Ginger Conlon, who just caught us all off guard yesterday by announcing her resigning her player in residency because she's taking a new position as helping to beef up thought leadership at Genesis. So she announced that on the show. It's like breaking news. I almost wanted to put breaking news up like MSNBC and CNN does. But
Yeah.
CNN puts it up when they open an envelope.
breaking envelope news.
They come back from a commercial and it says breaking news, and the breaking news is that they're going to go to a commercial.
Yeah.
5 minutes of commercials. It's the first words out of Wolf Blitzer's mouth on every coming in from every break.
Speaking of breaking news, that's Frank Radis in London. Welcome, Frank.
Hey, hi, Steve. Hello, gang. How are you? Good to see you. Yeah, Brent, you had superstars on your show. I saw that.
Yeah, Tina was doing a great commentary, and that's she was like really the big star, the off-screen star.
oh.
But it was really cool because this is a CRM Players First to have one spouse on air and the other spouse just lobbing really shots at the panelists.
Yeah,
great.
we've never seen that before.
No.
Not
I was
on
just
our
gonna
show.
say. I was just gonna say no. Tina doesn't do that.
Yeah, but see, it was the written word, Tina. It wasn't the voice of Tina.
really
It was
was.
the written word of Tina,
Ooh.
and she actually got some zingers in where Brian Solis and Paul Greenberg had to like, "Hey, wait a minute, I gotta address what Tina just wrote."
Right, but they had to be nice about it.
Of course, yes.
Yes.
And let it be written. So it be written.
So let's see. Michael, what's your last name?
My name
Markman.
is Markman. Markman.
Yes. And what
Is
is
that what
the
it says?
survey?
Underneath? Is that what it says? I can't read the lower third from here.
Oh, he's so good at this now. He knows how to play the post-production lower third like a maestro.
Yeah.
You know what else he knows how to play? Stone Scrabble.
Oh,
Oh.
you've seen that.
Oh, did we see it?
Ooh.
Yes,
Within-
we did. I actually have the clip if anybody else wants to see it, because I found,
Oh, yeah.
especially the last 2 minutes of it, it was it was.
I
just
don't want to
awesome.
have to. I want to
Share that with the
detail
group.
about
Would
that.
you, Brent, share
I'll,
that with
I'll
the
put
group?
the link
when-
in the
Yeah.
chat here, so
Excellent.
everybody else can enjoy that as well.
Excellent.
Also joining us from Massachusetts is Dennis Pombriant. Welcome, Dennis.
Hey, Steve. Hi, everybody. Nice to be here. Happy Friday, by the way.
It is a good thing.
I love
Yeah.
Fridays.
That's about
By the
good
way,
weather.
I was reading your Nuzzle newsletter, and you have a very intense amplification of the capabilities of that particular product, which Frank might be interested in, which is
Hydrogen battery.
well, it wasn't the content, it was the structure of the newsletter. You can not only do a daily commentary, which Frank, you said that you have to fit everything into a very small number of
Yeah.
pixels.
What, 150 characters, maybe?
No, it's like 254, some weird number.
So much bigger.
But what Dennis is doing is he's also providing comments.
Providing commentary on some of the stories, and I'm just
Yeah.
focusing on things that relate to green energy and when I can find it, carbon sequestration.
So what I like, Dennis, about the way you're doing your newsletter is that you do a headline and then you do a commentary that leads into all of the stories that also, in some cases, have commentary attached to them. So it really does feel, it feels like a fulsome experience in your newsletter. I actually like that a lot. I'm going to stick with my disparate. I kind of like getting up at 6 a.m. and finding the interesting stories that I didn't find from the day before and putting them together in a melange of stories, as it were. But I may steal the adding the comments
That's
front
all
of
I'm
each story, because that's pretty cool. I've seen that, but I haven't done that yet. So I'm going to start doing that, I think.
So Michael
I
Lockman,
anticipated a question
Thank
I
you.
was going to ask, which was, what's your schedule for managing your newsletter? I have a Nuzzle newsletter that I started years ago and have neglected because it just seems to it just seems I have to get up too early to tend to it. So
There's an
Dennis,
easy
what's
way
your
to do it.
schedule?
So there's an easy way to do it, and I appreciate the feedback. I'm in a way just taking the path of least resistance. I have multiple Google alerts that hit my mailbox every day, and all I do is cull through those for the things that are most interesting, and I put them in the Nuzzle newsletter.
Yeah, you can post to your newsletter from any story.
I don't know how to do that yet. I mean, I've only been doing it a couple of weeks, but perhaps. And so it takes maybe 10 minutes.
There's a great little thing in the methodology of Nuzzle that allows you to put a Nuzzle button on your phone, for example. So since I use my phone all the time, I have my notifications come in. I open up a notification and I can actually share it to my Nuzzle newsletter before it's published by just sharing it to that button, which means that when I get up at 6 a.m, I can now see, usually it's 15 or 16 stories that I've shared over to it, but you can only use 10 of them anyway. So then I have an opportunity after that to go and find the best 10, but adding the commentary I had gotten to the habit of writing a commentary the night before to at least one story that I thought was going to be the lead the next day, but it invariably changes. So it means I'm just going to have to wake up about 5 o'clock to start writing the commentaries.
I enjoy your commentaries.
In
They're
my
well done.
case, it took
Thank
me
you.
a long time to figure out to write an editorial. I did at first. I just used to send out the articles, but now I do an editorial and a video. And I would watch Frank and Dennis. I would watch a video of you talking about the day's news, like 10-minute. What's actually interesting and why. I would highly recommend it.
5 a.m, though, honestly. I look like that character in, the doctor from the Back to the Future movies.
Oh, Irwin Corey.
Well, okay, I kind of look like Irwin Corey.
You mean compared
You mean,
to how beautiful you are
Christopher,
later in the day?
Exactly.
Christopher, what's his name?
Professor, yeah.
Professor Erwin Corey, the
Uh,
world's foremost authority.
Christopher Lloyd.
Yes.
Lloyd. Thank
Christopher
you.
Lloyd, that's
Lloyd.
it. Yeah, Christopher
Who's
Lloyd.
the other guy?
Reverend Jim.
Reverend
I saw
Jim,
him- I
yeah.
saw him on stage once. He was really good.
Who?
Christopher Lloyd.
Christopher
Oh.
Lloyd.
Yeah.
What was he on stage doing?
I think it was in Cambridge. It was a Larry Gelbart play that never went anywhere called Mastergate.
Hmm.
It was based on Watergate.
Great title.
Yeah, I'm telling you, you got to listen to that one.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Mastergate.
That's what she said.
That.
Okay.
Yeah, fine. Thank you.
Enough improv here. Jeez. Let's stick
And
to the
finish your
script.
speech.
Okay, so
Yeah, Keith, it's that's a great idea of
Keith, can you raise your level
have
just
video?
a little bit?
To have video and to be able to write something. You can't really do that with this. I guess you're using what platform are you using to do your newsletter with?
I'm using Review now just because
Right.
it integrates Twitter, Feedly, which is my RSS feeds, and I can, Steve taught me how to put a little thing in my Chrome that lets me add any link as well. And it all comes up in a sidebar, and you just drag and drop the ones you want in the page. It works very well.
Right. That's
I
pretty
think you're
similar
talking
to
about the extension,
nuzzle
the
button.
Chrome extension that you can add. Yeah, it's great. I'm finding, although I don't publish anything, I'm finding Review to be terrific. It's got this drag and drop ability, which I never use, but I have the option of using it. And it spurs me on to write.
Well, the other thing about it, Steve, is the analytics are very granular. Like I know that last newsletter, exactly who opened it and how many times, and I can feel good about publishing every one. When I look at that list, I think, whoa, they're reading it. Not to name any names, but the analytics are really good.
Shit, excuse me. That means we have to read it.
Gosh.
I'm sorry.
And camera two.
No, I do read it. I'm sitting there going, oh,
I have a lot of subscribers, so I'll tell you the truth. I don't notice who doesn't read it. It's like they're gone.
but Steve, I really do like what you wrote, what you've been writing with the shows as you've been releasing. I liked what you wrote this week, and as you noticed, I've been adding the Gilmore Gang to my newsletter early in the morning. As soon as I see it, I drop it in there. It's replaced although I still put it in my other social media. I think it's a good thing to have as one of the important parts of the newsletter every day. Or every week. And I like that it came out exactly a week ago too. That's last week's show this week, today.
Is that
Yeah,
what
you
happened?
you were the 28th. The show was the 28th, I think. And so today, that was exactly a week ago today.
So what's interesting is, where does this all end up? Like, I'm tempted to do a clubhouse every week about my newsletter. Although I'm scared no one will show up, and that would be really bad.
Well, the first.
I think that's a good idea. I mean, especially if you do the clubhouse, at either later that day or the next day after the newsletter's been published.
I also
then
got an
advertise
invite.
in the news.
Brian Solis sent me an invite to Fireside yesterday, so I'm now in Fireside, which is Mark Cuban's live podcasting thing.
Keep things in perspective. It's not that I don't take running seriously. I do. I try
That's a Fireside, very like Clubhouse.
at it.
So is that the new Twitter?
No.
It's not Clubhouse?
It's called Spaces.
That's
It's
Spaces, yeah.
So
I'm not in Spaces. I haven't seen it yet.
So Fireside is made by,
It's a startup with Mark Cuban either funding it or even being the lead.
is it in beta now or is it
It's in,
actually out there?
It's in very early beta. They're adding new
Right.
features like every 10 minutes.
I thought it
Cool.
was interesting that
Who is?
a couple of things
Fireside.
that I thought it was interesting that there was an announcement today that WhatsApp was adding to video to its video
Desktop.
calling to its desktop.
Yeah.
And that later they were going to add multiple videos, so it would end up being an awful lot like what it is we're doing right now. Sounds like they're a little
Facebook
bit
Messenger
behind
already does that.
Yeah. So I think WhatsApp is a little bit behind the curve on that, but I think that a lot of people who use WhatsApp are going to be interested in that functionality.
Yeah.
So we're going through a period of splintering and expansion, and then we're going to have consolidation next
Yeah.
year or the year after.
Yeah, I think you're also going to see that in the streaming world too. I think that it's exactly the same dynamic is happening in streaming as is happening in those communications apps.
So have you guys?
You're talking about large video platforms like
Yeah.
Paramount Plus and HBO Max, etc.
Yeah, the head of the guy that used to run Hulu that it now runs Warner Brothers, Jason Kilar, did an interview where he predicted that in the next couple of years or next maybe 5 years, the streaming world was going to come down to 6 players who will have a global platform, 5 or 6. So there's way more than that out there right now.
It seems
And
a long time ago on the gang talking about this and just wondering how many subscriptions a typical viewer could sustain. Where do you max out and stop adding new streaming platforms to your credit card?
Well, one of the articles in the gang Telegram channel this week, t.me/Gilmore Gang, was saying only Netflix is sticky. The subscriber rates for all the others, with Apple being the worst, are very down and to the right. And Paramount Plus launched yesterday. And what I'm finding is I subscribe to them all, usually for one thing. Like Paramount Plus, I watch Picard and I watch Star Trek, the new Star Trek Discovery. Or HBO Max, there's a bunch of stuff I watch. If you graded them by how many shows you watch, Disney Plus is the weakest for me. Hulu's pretty weak.
I agree. Yeah.
Netflix, HBO Max are pretty strong. Paramount Plus is going to get me because it's got the Champions League live soccer. In the US.
Soccer. What is that?
That's football for you non-Brits.
Thank you.
I think it's very interesting that Amazon is making a play. Was it Amazon's who's making the play for American football right now? One of the streamers is Amazon making a huge play for American football, which I find interesting because it's just gonna blow them wide open. They're gonna be one of the 6, although they have the worst user experience, I think. But I'm Keith. I'm exactly in the same boat you're in. I've got so many of them where I'm only watching one show.
Yeah.
I mean, Amazon's in a unique position in that they don't sell their subscription to the stream separately. If you're in Amazon Prime, you get it. So it's what would you call it? A gift with purchase. A gift with purchase.
Yeah.
I
Brent, you have a show watching Amazon. So what's your take on? Is Amazon a serious player in this?
Yeah, they have 200 million Prime subscribers in the US alone. And they add these little, well, first it was just shipping. And as important as shipping is, now that we're all, at least most of us, still at home sheltering in place, we need stuff to watch. And So they're able to tack on the Amazon Prime Video. They got Amazon Music.
And they have the ability to promote their video streams when you go to buy stuff on the Amazon shopping site. So
yeah, they got an ad platform.
They've got hooks in it that nobody else, no other player has, because they just get you.
And they
They
have
got
good
ways
content.
to monetize that. Yeah,
They have good. They also have good content.
yeah.
We finished Goliath last night, the latest.
I just watched Coming to America too. It was available at midnight this morning.
How was it?
I liked it. I mean, let's face it, it's 32 years after the first one. So the expectations are kind of crazy for it. I enjoyed it because it was a lot of reminiscing, and a lot of the regular, the original cast was there. It's hard to believe it. Yeah, James Earl Jones is still there. So I enjoyed it, but the fact that they've got money, look, Amazon, they made, I think it was like 12 billion off of AWS alone last quarter.
Yeah.
We're not even talking about the retail side of that. I think they got money to throw at anything and everybody if they really want to compete. They're in it. They're going to be one of the 6.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. There's a couple of other interesting things going on right now that I think might be worth. How the movie business had decided that it was, or certainly Warner Brothers had decided that it was going to release its feature films at the same time online and in the movie theaters. Now, sort of taking a page kind of from the movie plan, is A&E announced that they were going to their new material on the linear channel so that they can sell ads, and then the next day stream it. So, and I think that they're the second or third company saying that they're going to do that, which I find also kind of interesting. So they're going to get them, the money side taken care of, and then they're going to put it somewhere where it's subscription.
Well, AMC did that, I think a year or two ago with an AMC Plus streaming service.
So it's a good thing, I think.
So it feels to me as if news and sport are both undervalued and unexplored territory. Like, if you do the economics on sport, and I know the economics for the Premier League in the UK, there's about 1.5 billion viewers worldwide. Today, the rights are sold by the league to mainly UK satellite broadcasters, or BT Sports and Sky, who then and worldwide to NBC and others. And the total gross revenue is something like $2 to $3 billion a season. But with 1.5 billion viewers, the revenue per season could be 50 times that. And so Amazon's right. Amazon's right to go after sport. If they just charged $1 a game, they would be grossing more money than the leagues gross by many, many multiples. So sport is doesn't know how to sell itself. It lets the advertisers make all the money, not the sport. And that can change very quickly now with streaming. And I think
Paramount Plus you're right about Paramount Plus. They're going to be right there in the middle of that game because they're making a huge bet on sports.
Yeah. Now the other thing is news. Why hasn't anybody put CNN, CNBC, ABC, NBC News all into a bundle? I tried to watch Stanley Tucci's CNN show, and the CNN app on my Apple TV doesn't authenticate if your TV provider is an over-the-top provider. Like CNN, Hulu Live, none of those are legitimate for CNN. They only work with satellite or cable broadcast subscriptions. So CNN is locked into the old world. Somebody should unlock it and make it available. Now I can watch it on YouTube TV linear, but if I want to watch back shows or the back catalog, I end up getting 20. I got this thing 20 ads before the show starts.
Speaking of watching the back catalog, Dennis, um, I saw Brian Williams last night at the end of his show. He likes to scare people as he departs, just to remind them to tune in next week or a day. Had some clips of our former president, and I could barely stand about 5 seconds of it, and it was about 30 seconds of it. So I muted it and went over to Clubhouse. So what I'm asking you, Dennis, is you've talked about this a couple of times, and we've never gotten around to it. How do you change the programming on these news networks in order to make them worthwhile as a bundle?
You have to. What I do is
No, Dennis. I want to ask Dennis.
Okay.
I feel like I should ask Keith. I'm not a TV guy. You got a supply and demand issue going on right now. You've got a big demand for like 75 million people in the United States think Donald Trump is great. And there are broadcasters who are happy to fill that demand. There's supply. But if you're asking how I would go about changing that dynamic, I think you change it with deeds, not with words. And so I think what you're watching the Biden administration do right now is not talk a great deal, but try to get policy done. And I think there was a piece, I think I put it in the app the other day about that very fact. I think it was Ezra Klein wrote it. He wrote that by focusing on deeds, policy, and not having arguments, you begin to lower the temperature. And if you can pass a couple of bills like the COVID relief package and then maybe an infrastructure deal, all of a sudden you got benefits flowing from DC, and people out in the real world compare the benefits that they're getting from DC versus the talk they're getting from Palm Beach. And that's, I think, when you change the dynamic.
Agreed.
Yeah, it's interesting that the Biden himself, as a matter of fact, seems to be missing in action from the major networks. I know he's announced that there's going to be finally a press conference sometime in the near future. I think that Jennifer Sakai was talking about that this afternoon, but I don't know when that is. But he's basically been MIA. They've been using local television local television and radio and online a lot more than the big players, which I think is an interesting way to go. And you're absolutely right. He's trying to make the big play be the policy. So the COVID relief bill, which the Republicans don't like, and the infrastructure bill, which would be the next thing. He seems to have already started to go in that direction.
Yeah. He's doing the right thing because he's okay, but he doesn't really overperform in front of a camera. He's a much better doer than he is a talker. So he should do and not talk so much. Going back to
he
Steve's,
clearly has decided, and his staff has decided to make him the anti-Trump. Just make a list of things that Trump does and do the opposite. So his surrogates, his cabinet people are out there. His supporters in Congress are out there, and Jen Psaki is out there.
I think
and
it's
once in a while. He's not the one who's holding the airtime.
I think it's a massive rope-a-dope campaign. He basically pushes the Republicans into completely untenable positions in order to be able to get the so-called TV audience. And I think the TV audience is tuning out and waiting to see whether the check is in the mail or not.
Well, you maybe know the last 2 months, MSNBC has been rated cable news show, and in some hours, the top rated cable channel of all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that thing that Keith posted just a couple of hours ago about the sort of the failure on the part of the Republicans to take advantage of the 10 hours of the reading of the entire bill. And then one senator comes out at the end of it, all the Republicans are not in the room, and says, okay, we're going to cut this down to a 3-hour debate, and he wins because there's nobody in there to go against him. Basically coming back to square.
Well,
I thought that
elections
was
matter. Elections
That was
matter.
Ron Johnson trying to do a filibuster on the cheap, and standing
Yeah.
up. Instead of standing up in his depends and talking, he gets some Senate staff people to read the bill.
All right. So I've been trying to avoid this for months, but the filibuster, is something happening here? I think it is.
It's a slow,
Maybe.
it's a
I mean,
slow.
we still have 2 votes on the Democratic side that are saying, no, we're going to keep the filibuster. And
Yeah.
it's Senator Sinema and Senator Manchin. So the question is, how do you get along?
You
Well-
know, there's an article in today in the Times or the Post. I don't remember where it is. I just saw it. It was on page 1 that says that moderate Democrats are beginning to rethink the wisdom of the filibuster. In fact, I think it is the Times. Let me see if it's still there. I don't see it real quick, but you know, that's something that's changing almost hourly. And what's happening this week is not necessarily what's going to happen.
Well, let's reverse engineer it. Let's presume that they're going to figure out some way of altering the current situation with the filibuster. What did they have to do in order to get there? I mean, there's this idea that, well, they've only got 48 votes, not 50. So they don't have 51 because the vice president cannot vote unless there's a tie. So, who's actually serious about this?
Well, I think there's 48.
Norman Ornstein, I don't know if you saw it 3 days ago. Norman Ornstein had a piece in the Washington Post suggesting a way of weakening the filibuster without actually killing it. In the old days, when it was 2/3 rather than 3/5, it was 2/3 of senators present and voting. And when they reduced it to 3/5 to 60 votes, they changed it to 60 votes of the entire Senate. What Norm Ornstein suggests is bring it down 3/5 of those present and voting, and then the kind of thing that just happened last night can happen more often, because the only way the Republicans can keep the debate going is if they stay in the chamber. If they leave the chamber, then the Democrats can have a cloture vote with 48, with 40, depending on how many people are present and voting. So that's one possibility for weakening the filibuster without actually killing it. Possible that Manchin and Sinema might go along with that.
So we've watched last night. We watched the CNN series on Lincoln. Did anybody see that?
No.
Did not.
Well, it's probably just my ignorance, but I had no idea how Lincoln became president. And, there was a series of debates with Stephen Douglas that were extremely important, and, Lincoln's sense of humor, et cetera, et cetera. But the thing that really struck home, I thought, was the Democratic convention, or the Republican convention, where he was nominated. Basically, the South splintered into 3 factions, none of which could get a majority, and Lincoln sort of came up in the middle, held a remarkably familiar percentage of the vote, 39%, and basically got nominated, and then succeeded in tearing apart the country over secession and all of the elements that came into play, and became one of our most significant presidents. So this is a lawyer from Illinois who had, I'd say, a nuanced approach to the issues of slavery, but he figured out how to be able to speak to various constituents in a way that wasn't necessarily flashy, but was politically effective. And so I think I'm drawing an analogy there to what Biden potentially is doing here in terms of bringing the ecosystem to a point where just by standing in place, he has enough strength to be able to get some things done. That's what, if anybody can follow that, please send me a letter so I can understand it. But the bottom line here is I think that the filibuster is going to come into sharp focus very quickly, which I didn't think 2 days ago.
Well, I think it has to, based on HR 1 and HR 4, the For the People Act and the Voting Rights Act, because those will not pass a cloture vote. So the only way they're going to pass in the Senate is if something is done about the filibuster. And there's a huge pressure on it, because if the Democrats don't do something about all of the state moves to restrict voting rights and restrict mail ballots, the Democrats will not be able to hold the House or the Senate. So it's a matter of.
Well, what makes you think that isn't going to happen?
I think it won't happen because I think there's a conflict of interest on the filibuster, because everyone sitting in there imagines themselves being in the minority. And the recent experience of being in the minority by the Democrats means at least some of them are not going to want to get rid of an instrument that they were able to use themselves. So I think there's a kind of a conflict of interest, mutual self-destruction kind of view. And that I suspect will lead to no majority in favor of getting rid of it.
The problem is that even if the Democrats sustain the filibuster, if the Republicans get a narrow majority, they can kill it. So, there's no wall there. It's just an air wall.
Yeah, well, except the wall is themselves. What my point is, some of them won't want to kill it because they're going to imagine being in the minority at some point in the future.
I understand that, but when they are in the minority, they don't have the filibuster, because if the Republicans want to kill it, the Republicans can kill it. So it's not as though there's any permanence to the filibuster. The Senate gets to set their rules every session.
Don't forget
but
that
then
Harry
you have to
Reid-
explain. You have to explain why no one's ever killed it.
That's Harry Reid did. You
Well,
forget
okay,
Harry
so
Reid-
there might be an example, but it's not normal.
when Harry Reid, well, first of all, the filibuster only came into popular use around 1917, basically as a thing that the Southern senators could use to block civil rights legislation. In I think about 2012, when Harry Reid was leading the Democratic majority in the Senate, the Republicans were giving a lot of pushback on Obama's judges nominations and requiring a cloture vote on every one. So Reid pulled the nuclear option and removed the filibuster as a requirement, or as a tool that could be used to oppose a judicial nomination below the Supreme Court level.
That's right. And then McConnell killed it another notch for cabinet appointments.
Yeah.
So it's step by step and whittled away.
Dying a slow death. I mean, it's sort of the paper cut strategy.
100 years is very slow.
Well, the other thing about the filibuster is that it's changed from being the filibuster to being the threat of the filibuster. So it used to be that someone could get up, because the Senate didn't have any rules to limit debate. someone could get up and talk and talk and talk until they were exhausted. Now, then the Senate added a cloture rule that said with a certain majority, a supermajority, you could cut off debate. Well, now all the Republicans do is threaten to filibuster and force the Democrats to hold a cloture vote. So,
all right, so that's the entropy situation. How is anybody going to be able to do anything about this from a momentum perspective? I don't understand what the Democrats' strategy is here, other than to, complain about it.
well, complaining, it depends on how well they complain about it. If they create a strong demand in the country for it.
Yeah, but I mean, look at how hard it is for us to even talk about it for 10 minutes. Do you think that there's going to be this wellspring of enthusiasm on the part of the electorate? I mean, come on.
Not if you make it about the filibuster, but if you make it about the agenda.
Okay,
if you
so
say-
what, all right, make it about the agenda and explain to me why that's going to inflame the populace.
Well, I think for one thing, the $15 minimum wage is a wedge issue for it. If the Republicans and 2 Democrats can block 15, and the parliamentarian, if that narrow group can block the $15 an hour minimum wage, for one thing, progressive Democrats have something to campaign on, because that seems to be very popular across the country. So you just make a list of all the things that are being blocked and say, we have to make, because you're right, nobody really cares about arcane rules, but they do care about what things get.
You seem to be starved for bandwidth here. I don't know. Maybe somebody's watching HBO Max in the other room. Are you on Wi-Fi or Ethernet?
I'm on a Wi-Fi. Yeah. Oh, my internet connection is unstable. I'm getting the same message.
Okay. All right. So just speak in shorter sentences. Frank, I know you're listening.
He's sending
No,
us.
I'm saying that you can't make buster, but you can make an issue of things getting blocked.
Okay.
Filibuster
Yes. What was that, Dennis?
Filibuster is something that can be easily removed. It's a simple majority vote. You have to have the vote. A lot of people won't like it. The Republicans will say it's the end of civilization as we know it. But as in point of fact, we're supposed to be a democracy. Democracies are supposed to win with 50+1. The Senate has never worked very well throughout nearly 250 years of our history, because the Senate was always configured as this thing that would give small states equal footing with larger states, rather than offering apportionment by population as the House does. That was all well and good, but the Senate, people learned how to game the system. I think a big part of the Civil War was the fact that conservative Democrats gamed the system so much it was completely broken, not unlike today.
And the federal minimum wage is a major issue.
If
the fact that it's $7.25 an hour, the federal minimum wage, most states do not have legislation that puts it above that. Texas is a great example. Even Florida, where they do have, it's only $8.56 an hour. So a $15 minimum wage is a pretty major change. It doesn't sound like much, actually.
I don't call it the federal minimum wage. I call it the plantation wage.
Yeah. I mean, it's just disgusting.
Yeah.
Frank, you're trying to get in.
It's such an oxymoron to hear you say that this is a, yes, Dennis, it is supposed to be a 50-50 thing, but in the case of the filibuster, it seems to me that you're absolutely right. The Republicans to a man are going to say, and a woman, are going to not vote in favor of getting rid of it. And you've got the rhino by any other name in Manchin, who could be the 51st, which pretty much, kills it right away. So it's really going to be a matter of trying to get, some moderate Republicans to admit that it needs to be changed. And I don't know if I see that happening, because heck, you can't even get the moderate Republicans to agree on it. It's like, hey, let's do something good. No, let's not do something good. It just feels like that's where we are.
I think there's zero chance of getting a Republican to vote to kill the president.
I look at this and I think, are the Republicans tone deaf? Are they relying too much on historical law of averages? For example, in the off-year elections, the president's party usually loses seats. So they think they can act with impunity now, but what they're doing is just adding more and more things that the Democrats can run against in 2022. I think they're setting themselves up for a Donnybrook.
Well, if they don't get the voting rights, correct me if I'm wrong, if the Voting Rights Act is not approved, it's still going to allow the Republicans to gerrymander and put themselves in a position to come back in 2022. And I think that's what they're thinking.
You have the Merrick Garland Justice Department and its Civil Rights Division reconstituted and prosecuting.
And that's why they decided to put the Merrick Garland nomination on hold.
They did?
Seems to me, didn't they do that yesterday? It seems to me like when that happened, I was like, I scratched my head and I went, well, gee, what could that mean?
Well,
Clearly, the Republicans
didn't
have
see that.
stolen. They have stolen a couple of months out of his term in office as Attorney General.
There was an article
They
yesterday.
stole 5 years out of his Supreme Court nomination.
But there was a good article about a high-ranking career official at Justice. Last name, I think, was Walker, who is implementing many of the things that Biden would want to do and Garland would do in the Justice Department. So there's nothing like having a confirmed Attorney General, but I think progress is still being made.
I'm jealous, Dennis. Sorry.
Yeah, I don't have to shave.
I am sorry. I'm just like, oh, look at that. That's so great. Look at that.
Yeah, it's a little kitty
well,
love.
When we're done with this, and here's why I think nothing's going to happen, because this is really a boring topic. But when we're done with this, I have something that will engage Brent. I'm just saying.
I'm engaged.
Maybe Brent will look at the camera.
Yeah, I got something when we're done with this, somebody say to me, yeah, we're done with this one. And then I'll ask Brent this one question
I'm done.
Because I don't know what to say about this. Are we good? Are we good with the filibuster? Steve, are we good with the filibuster? Or do we want to hear more about this?
Of course not.
Oh,
We've
right.
given absolutely no value whatsoever.
No,
I
to the
think it would be
conversation.
symbolic if we just talk about it for the rest of the show. Filibuster the show.
Wow.
Okay,
Oh,
just
that's
show
all.
that. Just show that clip with
Hey,
Jimmy
Frank,
Stewart.
you know how the
filibuster.
string, is your mic on? Just say what you want to say. I mean, there's nobody
So,
stopping.
hey, Dennis, Brent, why in the world would Jack Dorsey want to invest in that
Tidal.
Jay-Z music thing? Like, what's that all about? I talk to me about that.
Are you
I
like
think that's
reading my
crazy.
mind? Frank, you must be
See-
reading my mind or seeing my screen, because I was literally reading this article on The Verge. I think it's The Verge. It's one of those. And the title of it is, it's Recode. And the title of the article is, why did Jack Dorsey buy Jay-Z's failed music service?
I've got the answer to that in my newsletter this week.
Oh, well, you want to
Oh.
give us a little taste?
Little teaser.
It's
Yeah.
it'll open up
NFT?
a new
Is that what I'm
topic,
hearing?
but Dorsey is a big advocate for cryptocurrencies, and the music industry, it suffers from the fact that the value created is not monetized. So, for example, if I share a song with you guys, I don't get any credit for that. And if you share it with your friends, you don't get any credit for that. And the artist, goes through all kinds of filters and gets a little bit of it if we end up streaming the song. And I think what Square is going to do for music what it did for small businesses, which is allow the artist to collect the value and to share the value with fans. And I think that the way of doing that is going to be some kind of cryptocurrency play that may involve a new thing called non-fungible tokens for rare versions, like original recordings from the studio or live performances that are limited in terms of numbers of issues and are unique from each other and sold at higher prices.
That makes sense given what Square is.
Yep.
In that, it is about the artists. It's funny that you mentioned that though, because isn't there some new sports thing that's happening now where there's the NBA? There's this thing where they're selling video moments.
They're selling unique highlight reels, like one-offs, to the highest bidder. It's kind of like a digital version of cards, of collectibles. And NFTs are a way of proving that this is a unique instance of a thing.
Isn't this is another thing that your friend Mark Cuban is pretty big in, I think.
He understands NFTs, yeah. And NFTs are a way to make what happens in the art world, where an artifact becomes valuable because there's only one of them, be possible in the digital world.
The thing that confuses me about that is that, yes, there's only one of the original high quality videos, yet almost all of those things live somewhere online.
That's okay. It's like if I take a picture of the Mona Lisa, it isn't worth anything. Only the Mona Lisa is. There can be millions of pictures, but only the Mona Lisa is worth something.
Well,
You just
who's
cleared
this
it all up
Grimes
for me.
person?
I mean, the art world, NFTs are not only for unique items, but for limited editions.
Yep.
So in the art world, you can have an edition of 100 prints or of 1,000 prints. The artist gets to set that and then destroy the plate so there can't be any more of them. And of course, you could make a poster out of it. So you could make a GIF out of it or a GIF. But
So what does it mean when
Definitely
somebody named Grimes sells $6 million worth of digital art as NFTs? What the hell does that mean? First of all, I don't know who
what
Grimes
that means
is.
that he makes something and he creates he kind of stamps it with an NFT, which is a unique token. When the buyer buys the thing, they buy it with this token attached, which means it is the original unique thing. And they then hold it and they can sell it to someone else later for a higher value, just like a painting could, if it becomes more attractive. So it's basically putting value into digital artifacts and guaranteeing uniqueness, provenance, and ownership.
Okay.
But the problem with any kind of digital art is that it can be replicated with no loss of quality. So the way that you establish the rarity of it is through some kind of crypto token, and that's what NFTs are. So you can make something that's ordinarily uncopyable because it has.
Does anybody know who Grimes is? I mean,
Yes.
Because quite honestly, I never heard of her before. I don't know what she sings or whatever. I'm just the fact that somebody. I mean, it looks like she's a pretty young woman.
Our producer says that she's the mother of Elon Musk's baby.
Oh, so there we go.
And
All
the
right.
musician.
That's why she's able to sell $6 million worth of whatever it is, because she's connected to him. I was just curious as to how did some no name get to be able to do that, but I think we just
She's a musician.
Is
She
this
has-
is this a new way of doing DRM?
No, it's different than DRM. DRM protects millions of the same thing from being got for free, whereas this protects one of a thing from being mixed up with copies.
This is amazing stuff. I mean, somebody named Beeple sold $3.5 million worth of this.
Yep.
Somebody named Nyan Cat made around 600. I mean, this is pretty amazing because I don't know any of these people, but
Somebody
apparently
sold
enough people know them to treasure this.
This
this
is
stuff.
the.
It's
It's
amazing.
So
called.
somebody sold one basketball moment for over $225,000. I saw.
This
that.
is digital Warhol is what this is. Warhol took the soup can, the Campbell soup can, and he turned it into $1 million piece of art. And what you're saying here is that the concept of the blockchain, which is provable, provenance, as you call it,
Mhm.
is up for grabs at this point.
Yeah.
I think we all ought to look in our
Fascinating.
yards and our basements and our garages and find something you can sell because this can't last.
Yeah, but they said that about Warhol too. And boy,
How many
was he
Warhols
wrong.
are there, though? I mean,
This
for
will
every
last.
Warhol,
I got some Peter.
This will last.
I got some Peter Max art right back here that Peter Max did for me.
No, I guess what I'm saying is,
Right
I think
there. And I'll
there's
sell those.
always going to be the few, relatively speaking, the few people that are able to capitalize tremendously off of these things. But then the average Joe is going to think, "Oh, I'm going to cash in on this," and fall flat on their face.
Well,
That's
that
true.
gets to the whole realm of the art world, where how is value established, merit established, very complex, and it involves validation through critics, through galleries, through collectors. It's not a simple thing that you can take anything and put a token on it, an NFT on it, and make it valuable. The same dynamics that make any art valuable are still at play here. Has to do with the celebrity, the brand of the artist, and the endorsements by the art world.
It's
So-
not unlike any other economy.
Those are
You're
the
right,
things,
you're right.
Michael,
It is
that I
things.
think, Michael, those are the things that, I mean, my first thought about this whole idea was that it's like a big bubble and it's just going to explode when people start overpricing these things. But that could have happened in the art world and
Absolutely,
hasn't.
and it did. I mean,
And
Happens all the time.
well, yeah, but I mean, it happens all the time, but then it comes back again. It doesn't happen permanently and blow it up. It happens and then it maybe
Well, I mean,
Starts all over again.
that's our economy all over the place. You're talking about the formation and disruption of bubbles.
And I'm still waiting for the tulip media to come back around.
I was just
Yeah,
thinking about
that's
tulip bubbles and South Seas lands and all kinds of stuff like that. Tulips.
I've put a link in the chat to a great 1961 movie called The Rebel, which was a British comedian, Tony Hancock, seeing that modern art was becoming popular, decided to pretend he was one and did all these like totally shitty paintings and tried to get rich. It's a very funny movie.
is that a link to the movie itself? I hope, because I'm going to watch that tonight.
It's a link to a Wikipedia story, so you can probably find it from there.
Yeah.
It's
Good.
hilarious.
I'm
It
gonna
might
look
be
for
on
that.
Amazon. Do you have an Amazon Prime membership? You might already have it there.
I have everything. And what I don't have, I get from Keith.
but to Brent's point, Brent, the reason I get after I've said this sentence, you're going to agree with me. I think 100 years from now, will the most valuable art be physical or digital?
I'm going to say it's going to be physical again.
I agree.
I do. I
Probably.
don't think so. I think there's going to be a crossover moment.
Yeah, but
Doesn't
when
Bill,
that
doesn't Bill
moment's
Gates
done,
have?
when that moment is done, and everybody establishes the reality of what you're talking about, Keith, at that moment, a Monet will be more expensive.
Or Mona
because
Lisa.
remember, 100 years
Yeah.
from now, 100 years from now, you'll definitely be able to see full 3D solid digital art. It's not going to be 2D flat, boring animations. It's going to change.
Yeah,
it's
but
one of the
we're
things
not
we
talking
always
about
remember
we're not
about
talking
anything
about
that-
we're not talking about the quality of the art. We're talking about the veracity of the model, and at the let's take as what's the court term for okay, we'll accept that.
Stipulate.
Yeah, I'll stipulate to your idea about what NFT and crypto's involvement in this digital art thing is. But at that moment, it's still, if the richest of the richest are still going to want to own the masterpiece.
Let's put
Even
it like
if they
this
don't
for
show
me.
it.
A
But
little
that-
more,
yeah, but
to
that's
put a little
what-
finer point on it. Art,
I think there's something else to keep in
art
mind,
is
and that is
something
anything that
sparks-
Hang on a second. Finish your thought, Dennis, and then Michael.
art is something that sparks a human reaction. It's something that reaches into you and resonates with you. You could do that with a piece of stone that you've chopped up. You could do it with a canvas. You could do it with a wood panel. You could do it with electrons at some point. I think the key question for us 100 years from now, those of us who are lucky enough to still be alive, is going to be how does that affect us as human beings? I think that's got to be the standard.
And I'm going to say 100 years from now, there will still only be one Mona Lisa. It will still only be created by Leonardo da Vinci. And I don't know who's going to create digital art, but I'm guessing they're not going to be as well known or well thought of in the art world as Leonardo da Vinci or Mona Lisa.
You know what?
There's
Actually,
another
I'm not
dimension
sure. I'm
to
not
this.
sure of that.
No,
I'm not
wait,
sure
wait.
of that.
I know. Hang on. I said Dennis and then Michael. Michael.
there is another dimension to this. Anything that becomes an investment property has value that's not intrinsic to it, but is based on the expectation that it will be worth more tomorrow. If you buy shares of a company, you're not buying what the company is currently valued at. You're buying the hope that somebody tomorrow or next year or 10 years from now will want to pay more than you paid for it. And,
That is
and
the
that's
greater
part of
future.
anything that becomes an investment instrument, whether it's real estate or art or shares or anything else. Some things have intrinsic value. Some things depreciate, other things appreciate. And you're always making a bet if you're buying something as an investment product.
And the second point is Leonardo da Vinci only became Leonardo da Vinci afterwards. When he started, he was a nobody. He was working for the Catholic Church on a charity mission. So, artists aren't born. The end result doesn't exist at the beginning. So some of these people who are nobodies are going to end up being somebodies.
Yeah,
I
that's
totally
exactly
agree
the
with that.
point.
Also,
But-
I think you have to say this about the Mona Lisa. It has no value because there's no market for the Mona Lisa. It's held by France in the Louvre. It's not for sale. It has no value. How much?
Yeah,
how
but
much
what if they put it
would
on
the Louvre
sale? I mean,
acquire the
that could be
Mona Lisa?
easily. What if they put it on sale? You don't think somebody's going to say, well,
Well,
forget
if they
I
put it,
don't want
I'm saying that it's not on sale. I mean, I suppose someday someone might want to, if the Louvre is strapped for cash, they might want to sell a few pieces to make some money. But I can't foresee the circumstance in which the Mona Lisa goes on the market.
You know,
So
the
that's-
way,
that's-
the way
that means
that,
Hey, I got
It's
Da Vinci
priceless.
over here. Who wants to buy a Da Vinci?
you have to realize the way that. the way that-
Remember, he just painted that thing. He was just like a painter. That's
Da
what he was.
Vinci notebook. Everything's written backwards. You have to read it through a mirror. But
Through a mirror. What, for God's sake?
I've
Da
got
Vinci
to
was
tell you a
making about
story.
the
I've
same
gotta
amount. Da Vinci was making about the same amount of money as the British government had asked the people at the NAs.
At what? You ran out of
The-
bandwidth again. I can't hear what you finish the thought again, please.
government.
Go ahead, Keith. Explain it.
No, I didn't hear you blanked at the end. The British government paid, and then we didn't hear what they paid.
Okay, so they've offered the NHS 1%, a 1% raise, 1%,
Yeah.
which they then turned down.
I was
just
going
saying,
to
what
tell us.
my point was that was that Da Vinci was probably making what the British government offered as a raise to the people who are saving lives. Anyway,
He got paid. He got paid commissions by the Catholic Church and small ones. He was like that. It was benefactors. That's how artists lived in those days, through benefactors.
Right.
So I was going to
Yeah.
tell you a story about France. So back in 1994, I opened the first cyber cafe in France in the Pompidou Center above the ticket office, and I can't remember if it was that year or the year after, but the government changed to the Socialist Party from the Gaullists. And the whole committee of the Pompidou Center changed because even at that level in France, it's a political appointee that runs the art stuff. So the idea that the Mona Lisa might be sold is not impossible. I agree with Michael. It doesn't. I'd say it doesn't have a price. I think it does have a value, but it doesn't have a price.
That means it's priceless.
It's priceless, but it does have a
it's
value.
not valueless.
No,
I think
not at
Keith,
all.
right.
Well, I think the original argument that Keith made about that there's going to be some sort of digital artist that's going to be worth more than the Mona Lisa, I don't think that you've proven that point.
But you can't prove it. You can't prove it. It's,
Of course you can. You don't need to have the Mona Lisa on the market in order to establish its price. Its price is more than most anything else. And there's a list of those objects in the universe that people understand and they aspire to, and so on. So the only point I was making about the supremacy, if you will, of physical objects is that it all comes down to ego. And if you're correct about this digital moment, it's still going to be less valuable than the actual objects that exist in history.
no, well,
It's just going to push the price up
So you've
for
challenged.
everything.
I accept the challenge. The challenge is the best answer is this: NFTs.
You know, an interesting part.
No, let me
what you just
answer. Let me
said.
give the point, and then you come next, Dennis. That NFTs will allow ego because the NFT will say that thing in your living room projected upwards from your table as a 3D piece of art is the only living version. That's what it will do. So if that art becomes adored in the same way the Mona Lisa is and is shown in galleries, it can easily become as valuable.
As valuable, but not more valuable.
Or more if it's more. If it's
I don't buy it. I don't buy that argument.
Well, the only variable is how sought after is it.
I have a question. How
No,
many
no,
of us are planning to be alive
It's fine.
100 years
It's
from
fine.
now?
I want it. It's mine. It's my turn.
Well, you have to talk louder or more.
An A. Jesus.
Go, Dennis. Go, Dennis.
What you say is very interesting and true. However, anything created with electrons won't be unique, sui generis. And the thing that I think Steve's getting at is that over time we're going from the idea of owning things to experiencing things. We're going from things to experiences. We've seen a lot of that already. What I think you're talking about 100 years hence is a pure experience. And a pure experience is going to be subjective and it's going to be less monetarily valuable than the hard object that many people can experience.
And one last part of this, for me at least, is, just keeping on the Leonardo thing. It was 500 years ago. They don't know how he did it. There's reams of people studying it, trying to figure it out, trying to authenticate. But anything that gets created now, you're going to know exactly how it's created because it's all going to be digital and there's all going to be footprints. And that kind of takes away from the mystery, and that takes away from the story, and even kind of the experience
Brent,
that you
Brent,
cannot
Brent.
Now,
that you
but
cannot
imagine,
replicate.
Brent, if some fabulous artist, musician, for example, sells to one person his entire concert, one person,
Okay,
and that
one
only
person.
that one person can get that concert, and that person keeps that concert, that's a piece of art that is essentially digital, because it will have to have been digitized in order to be transmitted. So I didn't actually think that the conversation would go in this direction when I asked you that question about 18 minutes
That's what you
ago,
get for
but,
asking.
Yeah.
yeah.
But you don't own this conversation. You just started it.
Well, we can sell it to some
Well, yeah, but
sucker out there,
that's
right?
that's what I do. I don't own anything.
I think there's as much mystery in digital creation as there is in physical. The materials are different, but when I look at things that people do in Photoshop,
Yeah, that's
couldn't-
crazy stuff.
I
Yeah.
couldn't get close to it. I have
That's
no
true.
idea how they do it.
That's true. But I have even more of a lack of awareness or understanding for how some dude 500, 600 years ago created something, a work of art that they're even still trying to study today and can't figure out
Right,
exactly how
'cause
he did
that-
it. Or the pyramids.
Is
How
she
do you-
The
smiling
guy,
at it?
or the guy invented the helicopter, for God's sakes. Nobody knew what the hell
Oh
a
yeah, his
helicopter
notebook.
was.
How much did Bill Gates buy his notebook for? I mean, it's
Speaking of digital art, isn't Bill Gates's house only filled with digital art from
By the way,
Never been there.
Frank,
well, I haven't either, but I read that somewhere.
Frank just revealed how historically specific these things are, because what Da Vinci actually invented wasn't the helicopter, it was the drone.
yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
the-
Oh,
Yeah.
no, he did a
You're
helicopter.
right.
too. He did a
I
submarine.
thought I had propellers there.
But
His submarine design eventually became known as the Turtle.
yeah, you know what? Have
Yeah.
any of you ever heard of a movie called Tim's Vermeer? I think I might have mentioned it once.
By the owner, the founder of Newtek, which is the
Oh,
company that developed the
Switcher.
TriCaster, and before that the
Yeah, it was produced.
the video.
the toaster. The toaster.
That's right.
Yeah.
It was.
I love the video
produced by
toaster.
Penn
That's a
and
great piece of equipment.
It was.
Yeah.
It was produced by Penn and Teller, and the whole thesis of the movie was trying to figure out how Vermeer could paint, and Rembrandt could paint such realistic pictures using paint instead of, because they look almost photographically realistic. And the whole movie goes through this long search. This goes to what Brent's talking about. It goes through this long search to find, to understand the physics of building a contraption that would take an image and project it onto a blank piece of canvas. So all you had to do is color in the images on the canvas. It's just brilliant, and it puts me in mind of what you're talking about here.
Send a link for that also, would you? Because that's another one I might stay up all night and watch.
Yeah, Frank's
Oh,
gonna be busy
okay,
all
I'm
weekend
gonna-
watching this stuff.
I'm going to call a
Oh, man.
digital unrepeatable halt to this conversation.
Okay.
And I'm
Go
going to
around the
sell.
horn. I got something to say.
Oh, good luck. I'm going to wind
When
this
you go-
down.
Okay. Well, you're
Okay,
gonna do the horn thing, aren't you?
When I'm going to go around the table, and then you'll be able to say it. Okay. All right. Keith, you have to leave, right?
In a little while.
Oh, okay, good. Well, then, Frank, never mind. Go ahead.
So I was going to say, and I don't think we have time to discuss this, but I thought it was an interesting move on Google's part to stop ad sales on the user's browsing history, which they announced this week. Didn't say that they were going to stop ad sales based on the hit of mobile apps and following your history of use of apps, but it did say that they were going to sort of start to discontinue using your browser history as for tracking and selling. I found
Hey.
that interesting. It seems like it's small, but it's a start, I think.
That's the
Is that in your
The more
newsletter?
significant thing they did
Yes.
is
Okay.
limit the ability of other advertisers to track you across the web.
That's
Yeah.
the second.
I don't know how
Really?
much of what Google did is in favor of privacy and how much is just anti-competitive.
No, what? So that's the lead in my newsletter today.
Oh, good.
The NFT stuff is lower down. It's really interesting. I don't know if you got time, but basically, Apple is blocking cookies, so Google's abandoning cookies, third-party cookies, which means that Google can track what you do through the browser and Android, only through the browser and Android. So if you use iOS and Safari, they can't track you. They are going to track you, and they're going to build an individual profile for each of us called, and the system's called Flock, F-L-O-C. And Google will have this buckets, a fixed number of buckets, and you'll be put into a bucket, and an advertiser can target a bucket. They don't know you, they know which bucket you're in. And Google will enable third-party advertisers to access that bucket as a way of delivering and targeting an ad. So there'll still be targeted ads, there'll still be profiling, but it'll be centralized inside Google, and it will not be personal, as in you won't be identifiable.
I think one of the things that will stop, tell me if this is correct, Keith. Now if you show any interest in any product anywhere, ads for that product will show up everywhere that you go. So you might look at something on Amazon and then you'll see an ad for it if you go look at the New York Times.
Well, that
And I think
already
this-
happened.
I think that kind
Yeah,
of,
that feels like that's happening now.
pardon?
That already
happens now,
and
right?
it will continue happening. Except Google isn't going to say which websites you visited. It's going to say your demographics, your current interests. It's going to put you in a bucket. It isn't going to be right down to your individual profile. There'll be a bucket profile that you belong to.
Right.
And that's in
can
your
remember
newsletter,
A
right?
year when I went to an online site to buy flowers, buy roses. And following that, every website that I went to, anywhere, showed me an ad for those roses.
That's the current system.
That
That's-
retargeting.
And
that's
I
the
think
cookie.
that's going to disappear, is it?
I hope so. My point in the newsletter was to make the point that I actually want to be understood better. So in a sense, I'm okay to be profiled. What
You're
I
taking the
hate,
Scoville position.
yeah, but what I really hate is bad profiling that leads to
Yeah.
really bad experiences.
Yeah. Right now, I'm okay with good profiling because I'm likely to, at this point, because I'm stuck at home, to simply just go ahead and buy whatever it is they threw in front of me.
Well, the advertisers are going to love you.
Guess
Oh, man,
what?
they do love
Guess what?
They do love me.
A lot of discrimination there.
Last night I bought
I
a pair of,
have, look,
last night I bought
always
a
talk
pair of
about-
green and orange sneakers at midnight.
Oh, excellent. I'm not only am I a first in, but I'm also the first. I'll buy almost any technology that gets stuck in front of me. I just threw a bunch of money into Wish, which is the stupidest place
Oh,
to
yeah.
buy electronics.
I hate
But I
that.
did it anyway because I go through this thing and I go, oh my God, look at that. It's only $9. And and then I buy like 5 of them and wait for about months until I get it. And then it breaks about 20 minutes later, but I'll still buy it. And so I'm adopter, but I'm also an early abandoner. So I have a box filled with all of this crap. My wife says, we have to get rid of those wires. What are these things? What are these adapters? You don't use them for anything anymore. And what is this? A cassette player? This is a DVD player? Throw this out. No, I can't throw it out because who knows? I may want to use it.
Oh, it's one
As a
of
matter of
those.
fact, I'll
It's
probably
one of
buy
those
something else.
NFT players that.
Yeah.
Remember that back in the 20th century, or 21st century? What was it?
Back in the 21st
20th.
century.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where's my
Listen, I
time?
still have a fax machine. I have a fax machine somewhere in this place.
know
And
how
this
to
is
use it?
distinguishable from Mania. In what way?
It isn't. What's your point?
Sounds like our
Get to the
closet.
point.
Yeah, I mean,
Get to the point.
we're
Dirt.
living in this pandemic nightmare, and we can't get out of these boxes, right?
As evidenced by these boxes.
Yes. Okay. I'm not going to say last thoughts because this is pretty much the last thought.
Oh,
Okay. Thanks to our producer and director, Tina Chase Gilmore.
Thank you. Thank you all. Great show.
Thanks to Brent Leary. Brent, did we stay away from Clubhouse long enough for you?
Yeah, I want to just say thanks to Frank because he really made that last 30, 40 minutes fun because of his question.
Thanks to Frank Rathers from
You're
Brent Leary.
welcome. Thanks, Brent. Love you, babe. Don't ever change.
Thanks to Dennis Pombriant.
thank you. I'm not going to say it. Thank you. Good to see you all.
What were you going to say? Something. If it was about cats, I'll listen.
It's not about that. Well, it's about something my cats taught me. One of the great benefits of COVID for me has been that I've discovered and firmly believe we've just got too much technology, and I've spent the last year unplugging and getting away from a lot of it, and it's been wonderful.
Thanks to Michael Markman.
Thank you to all of you. No last
Thanks
thoughts.
to-
Just
Thanks to the
gratitude.
video. Thanks for the video that I shared with everybody that I
Yeah.
know they're going to enjoy.
I still don't understand how that was produced or on what substances it was generated.
What-
Frank, I put
One where you're laughing.
the story of the video it long time ago when I was living in Cambridge and had a roommate and I had a couple of neighbors. We all got high one day and played Scrabble, and the rule of the game was you could only put down things that weren't words, and then you had to supply a definition for the words that you made up. And I happened to take a notebook at the time and write down all of the plays as they went down with the definitions. And then years later, I discovered that notebook. And so I recreated the game on a YouTube video.
We
Wow.
should do that here
Makes
one
sense.
night, all of us.
He couldn't
Sorry.
even get it out. So, yeah.
And thanks to Keith Tier, who apparently in this newsletter has covered all of every topic that ever existed.
I'm just a genius at putting my finger on the pulse. We all know that. But by the way, no one ever tells me to never change. So
Don't ever change, Keith. Love you, babe.
I always assume everybody wants me to change.
No, but by saying to you to don't ever change basically means that you're constantly in a state of change
There you go.
because that's who you are.
That's it.
Well, there you
So
go.
don't ever change.
Thanks to everybody who showed up and especially those who didn't. We'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Sayonara.
Chow mein.